how are you today? This is Jeanne from Home Garden Joy, and I hope that you're having a wonderful fall day. Right now here in Virginia, it is, well, it's probably the same day for you. It's September 30th, and I was going to say that right here in Virginia, we have lovely weather with the days around 70 degrees in the evenings in the 50s. Now it'll get a little bit cooler and it might warm up a little bit because that's Virginia for you. But no matter where you live, now is the time to start thinking about planting your spring flowering bulbs. Those are your 5, 6, or 7 from a bulb. You want to think about planting those now. And I know a lot of you are thinking, well, they bloom in the spring. Don't you plant them in the spring? And you can. I mean, many garden centers now stock already growing bulbs that are blooming in the spring for gardeners, mostly because most gardeners, let's face it, homeowners forget often to buy their bulbs, and a lot of people have lost the art of planting in the fall for spring bloom. I'm hoping to change that. I want to educate you so that you are going to be the best gardener you know how to be, and your house is going to be the envy of all the houses on the block because your flowers are just going to look so gorgeous. So today we're talking spring bulbs, and today is going to be a little short. I had meant to purchase some packages of tulips or daffodils so I could do a little demo, but I'll do that next week. So for now, let's talk a little bit about what are called the Holland bulbs. That's actually what my master gardener had to differentiate them between other sort of tubers that you plant. Part of the root system, and things like irises grow from rhizomes. Now, for tulips, however, they are true bulb type of plants. Tulips and daffodils and jonquils and hyacinths and all of those plants that flower in the spring grow from a bulb. So you want to find the best bulb that you can right now. And here's why. The flower that will appear next spring is already inside of that bulb. Isn't that cool? I love that because to me it's just like sometimes gardening in nature to me is like a miracle. Like when I look at how intricate and how everything is just perfectly timed. But the flower itself for say a tulip exists right now inside of that bulb. So the bigger the bulb, the bigger and better the flowers you have. So when you are at the garden center and you are looking for bulb you can find, that will make the biggest flower. Now tulips come in all colors except for a true blue. There's even a very dark purple, which is considered a black. There are striped varieties, the so-called Rembrandt varieties, which great stories behind the Rembrandt varieties. I think I'll save that for another day. But you can find tulips in every color of the rainbow. And on Home Garden Joy, I actually have a chart in my article about tulips that tells you all of the different types of tulips and when they bloom and how deep to plant them and the types of flowers and all that sort of stuff. A couple of notes here on bulbs. I mentioned that you want to buy them now, okay? You want to plant them now while the ground can be worked, but not so early that they're going to start growing because the weather, for example, here, in my beautiful Virginia garden, it can fool them into growing a little bit early. Now, nothing bad will happen to them if they start sprouting. I often get questions in November or December from people who see, for example, their daffodils are starting to sprout or their crocus and so on. And the garden settles back. The tricky part is that sprouting action or the growing action when the bulb wakes up does use up some of its energy. So you might get a little bit less of a vigorous plant or a little bit less show. But you want to choose your bulbs now. Number one, the stores have the best selection. And if you have your heart set on orange tulip bulbs, my friend Denise, who has passed away many years ago, every time I say orange tulip bulbs, I think of her because orange was her favorite color, and she always planted orange tulip bulbs. So if you have your heart set, like my friend Denise used to have, on orange tulips, you should go now and buy them because they might not be there in another week or two. When you get your bulbs home, what I want you to do is store them in the coolest spot in your house. The cooler, the better. Any temperatures above 70 degrees have a chance of hurting the flower inside the bulb, and you don't want that. So if you're ordering them by mail, generally the mail order companies will not ship them until it's the appropriate time for your gardening zone. I ordered, I hate to say this, it's kind of embarrassing, but several hundred, I know, several hundred bulbs for the spring. We plant them in our orchard. I plant daffodils in our orchard, and you'll see pictures of that on our Facebook page. I saw a picture a long, long time ago of an orchard in England that had daffodils growing under the apple trees. And I said, I want that. So I've been doing that for the last 13 years. But we ordered tulips, daffodils, and crocus and hyacinth for mail order. And the company will not ship those bulbs until probably end of October to ensure that they remain cool during shipping. Once you have your bulbs, keep them cool under 70 degrees. You want to plant them in the northeast of the United States where I used to live. Anything in zones like 5 or 6, you want to plant around Columbus Day, which is, I think, the first or second week of October. So I think around between October 1st and 15th. For southern gardeners, which is me, zone 7 and below, you when the ground can be worked. You want to plant them at the proper depth. That is super important, and here's why. The action of cold and dormancy on that bulb creates a cycle that the bulb needs in order to grow. If it's too close to the surface, any type of warming, even if it's temporary, can again cause it to grow. And as I said before, while it won't kill your bulb, anything that's causing it to grow and die and grow and die is going to take some of the vigor out of the bulb. And you don't want that. You want a vigorous, healthy, wonderful plant that's just going to delight your garden. Look on the back of the package. There will be a chart that will tell you how deep to plant bulb. Another week I'll bring in my bulb planting tool called an auger, and I'll show you how to use that. And that has little markings on the side of it that helps you tell the proper depth for your bulbs. So find a something that in the front, you want them in the middle, you want to pick something that'll be, taller than the plants in the front, but not so tall that it's going to obscure whatever's behind it, etc. You want to plant them or appropriately at the right time, at the right depth. One thing that I'm asked often by our readers here at Home Garden Joy is about keeping pests out of spring bulbs. If you're planting bulbs like narcissus and daffodils, pests do not like them. They're deer resistant. I have white-tailed deer here that my orchard is not fenced in. The deer do get a lot of our apples and our other fruit. But the daffodils that I grow all throughout the orchard are not touched by the deer because there's a chemical within daffodils that makes them very unpalatable to deer and mice and things like that. So daffodils you don't have to worry about. Tulips, it's a liquid that you spray on the bulb or you dip the bulb into before you plant. It won't hurt the animals. So, I'm big on protecting animals and so forth. It won't hurt them. What it'll do is it'll leave a horrible taste in their mouth and they'll run away and they won't eat the rest of your bulbs. So if you're having a problem with mice or voles eating your bulbs, Ropel is a great product. One tip, wear rubber gloves when you use it because if you get it on your hands and then you touch your mouth, which we do just unconsciously, you will have that horrible taste in your own mouth and it doesn't go away for a while. Ask me how I know that. But it is just yucky. So Ropel at your garden center. Do things like dog hair work? No, they don't. I have place. Soaps can work. If you have like a really strong soap, like Coast, I think is one of them, Irish Spring. Some people recommend shavings of that in a little bag planted with your bulbs. I haven't tried it, but it's worth a try. It wouldn't hurt. One other thing is I've seen recommendations to put mulch around bulbs. If you do mulch, use compost, not regular bagged mulch. If you have voles around your area, they love, 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 love pine bark mulch and all sorts of woodland mulch because I think it reminds them of the woods. And what happens is they go under the mulch and then they're like, oh, look at this food source. It's like, we've got a restaurant that moved in next door, and then they eat all the bulbs. So when you're planting your tulips and other types of bulbs, I would not mulch around them, or I would use something that is not tasty. Bulbs. Next week, we're going to start talking more about each type of bulb and the differences between them and how you plant them and where they come from and all sorts of cool stuff. I'll try and do some show and tell. I'll bring in my bulb auger, and I hope to actually buy some bulbs and just show you some of the anatomy of the bulb. One other tip, and I'll talk about this another week, but you may notice when you buy your bulbs that there's that brown stuff like onion skin in the bag, or if you pull the bulb out and that brown stuff falls off, you may panic a little and think something's wrong with your bulb. The brown stuff is called the tunic of the bulb, and it's just a coating, a natural coating around the bulb. It dries when the growers dry the bulbs for shipment and storage. Perfectly okay if some of it falls off. Don't panic. If you're planting the bulbs, you can just pop it in the planting hole to add a little nutrient to the soil or throw it out. It won't hurt the bulb if it comes off. Do not go out of your way to take it off of the bulb. But again, if it's in the bag, it's not like a sign that the bulbs are too old. It's just natural. It's kind of like, your hair, you find your hair is falling out sometimes. I mean, it's just sort of it just sheds off of the bulb like onions. You go to the grocery store and you buy a bag of onions, there's always that skin in there. We don't think twice about it because we're so used to it. The same thing happens with bulbs. So don't worry, if you see that, it is fine. You're good to go. I'm Jeanne Grunert for Home Garden Joy. Before I go, check out Home Garden Joy. We have a ton of resources on spring flowering bulbs, and I will, of course, be posting these videos and some more great content around spring flowering bulbs. But head on over there. I've also got a lot of posts about apples and pumpkins, and this is one of my favorite times of the year. I love apples, my very favorite fruit, and so I grow apples, and I've got a lot of stuff on the blog about that. So if you're interested in any of that, head on over. I really hope that you stick around. Watch our Facebook page for today. If you have questions for me, do drop them to me. I'm happy to answer them. I had some questions this week about some recipes that I had posted to the blog. I'm not really going to answer them here, but I welcome any questions related to gardening or the recipes on my blog and stuff like that. So feel free to drop me a note, and I will answer questions as I can. Thank you. Have a great day, and happy gardening. Bye-bye.